There we go. All right, everybody. We are live. Charlie Marlow YouTube channel and podcasted on Kenny Wallace Media. How you doing, everybody? Let's get right to it. We're going to talk college football. You see the headline. Maybe Eli Drinkwitz should leave Mizzou. And I'll just be completely honest. I'm contradicting myself. I did a video here on this platform weeks ago, month ago, whenever it was. And I said, Eli Drinkwitz should never leave Mizzou. And when I did that video, I believed that at the time. But then I thought a little bit more. And so for anybody that doesn't know, Eli Drinkwitz, head football coach at Mizzou, he is being talked about for a lot of these openings. I've seen him. He was the betting favorite last week or so for Florida. Also being talked about at Penn State. I'm not sure if he's really in the mix for LSU. We shall see. There's a lot of big-time openings, and there's going to be even more openings as we move forward, and especially after the season. But I was thinking about it because originally I thought, well, look, Eli Drinkwitz, you're at Mizzou. You could go down as the greatest coach at Mizzou. They'll build you a statue. You don't have the same type of expectations as a Penn State, as an LSU, as a Florida, where you could be easily fired after 2, 3, 4 seasons if they don't like what they're seeing. You're Eli Drinkwitz. He's about my age, I think. I'm 43. He's a little bit younger. You could probably stay at Mizzou for the next 20 years. So why do you want to leave? Again, for all those things I mentioned, the pressure and all that, you could get fired. But then I thought about it more. And I was thinking about Rich Rodriguez when I was making this comparison. First of all, Eli Drinkwitz may never have another opportunity where he's being discussed for some of the best jobs in college football. Now, he may 5 years from now. Maybe he's great at Mizzou. Maybe he doesn't leave. I don't know. But to a certain extent, you have to strike while the iron is hot. And right now, Eli Drinkwitz is a hot name in college football because what he's built at Mizzou, especially the last couple seasons. There's no guarantee that I'll have more 10-win seasons back-to-back, whatever it was at Mizzou. And 3 years from now, maybe he's not talked about for future big openings. And so, again, I'm thinking about Rich Rodriguez. And you have to put yourself in Eli Drinkwitz's shoes. Mizzou fans aren't going to like what I say here, but think about it like this. If you're Eli Drinkwitz and you're at Mizzou, which is a really good job, it's a good job, but think about the tiers of college football. It's not a tier 1 job. Now, wherever you want to slot Mizzou, tier 2, tier 3, and I'm not trying to talk about tiers for disrespect, but Mizzou is clearly a program that can be top 25. You can be top 20, top 15. Can you perennially be top 10? Probably not. Certainly not perennially top 5, you would think, but it's a good job. But there's a lot of schools like Mizzou. Power 4, Power 5. I know we're calling it Power 4 now. But there's a lot of Power 4 jobs like Mizzou where if you're thinking about this from Eli Drinkwitz's standpoint, in his mind, he's probably thinking this. And maybe he loves Mizzou and he's staying. But just go with me here. Put yourself in Eli Drinkwitz's shoes. He's thinking, if I go to Penn State, either A, I succeed, I stay there for a long time, make a ton of money, maybe win a national championship. So there's A. But here's B. Maybe he fails at Penn State. Maybe he is fired after 3, 4 seasons, whatever it is. Eli Drinkwitz, around age 40, in his brain, he probably thinks, and he's thinking correctly, that if he fails at a Penn State or a Florida, whatever it is, there's a very good chance that he can then go back to a Mizzou-type job. Not necessarily Mizzou. I'm not saying he's going back to Mizzou. He can go back to that Mizzou tier. There's lots of schools in those tiers. And there's a lot of great jobs. I think about Michigan State. Michigan State can be a great job. Mark D'Antonio took Michigan State to the college football playoff. You can make Michigan State every once in a while a top 10, a top 5 team. Just in the same way, you can make Mizzou a top 10, top 5 team every once in a while, right? Every 7 years, every 10 years, whatever it is. Gary Pinkel did it back in 13, 14. Eli Drinkwitz, they were knocking on the door, 2 years ago when they beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. We don't have to get into that. We've argued about that enough. But that's my point. My point is Eli Drinkwitz should be thinking, this is how I would think. And Mizzou fans, I know you get mad at me every couple of years, but put yourself in Eli Drinkwitz's shoes. He's thinking, all right, I go to Florida or I go to Penn State, whatever it is. I either succeed or 3-4 years from now, I get fired, huge buyout, but I'm only about 45, however old he is. I want to coach again. I can go back to a Mizzou type job. And I'm talking about just name the jobs that are kind of like Mizzou. He's an Arkansas guy. He could go back to an Arkansas. He could go to a Michigan State type job. And I'm not saying Purdue is up there, but I'm trying to think of, Mississippi State, schools like that. Not top tier. We're not talking about Ohio State, Penn State, Florida, LSU. That's the conversation he's in right now. But if he fails at a tier 1 job, certainly Eli Drinkwitz will get more opportunities after that to go back to a tier 2 or a tier 3 job. And again, I'm not trying to get into that debate of is Mizzou tier 2, tier 3, whatever it is. I don't care. Mizzou can be a really good job, top 25, top 20, top 15, whatever it is, but they're not a blue blood. And that's my point. And I thought about Rich Rodriguez because I was in Michigan and I covered that coaching search because we covered the last game of Lloyd Carr. Lloyd Carr's last game, Capital One Bowl. This was 2008. Michigan actually beat Tim Tebow's Florida team in that bowl game. That was Lloyd Carr's last game. They have the coaching search. They hire this hotshot spread offense guy, Rich Rodriguez, out of West Virginia. He had West Virginia rolling. Everybody knows what happened at Michigan, obviously. It was a colossal failure for Rich Rodriguez. And I looked it up. I don't even think he had a winning season in about 3 seasons. But what happened after that? Look, that was a colossal failure. As I said, Rich Rodriguez is able to then go coach at Arizona. And I'm not even saying, look, it didn't work out great there. He was there for a decent amount of time. But Arizona, again, is in that tier of a Mizzou. We can argue about who's better. I would say Mizzou's a better football job. But again, we're talking Power 4 type jobs that aren't blue bloods. Rich Rodriguez failed at Michigan after being hugely successful at West Virginia, was able to go then to Arizona. It worked out, whatever the way it did. Then he did some kind of assistant coordinator. I think he was at Jacksonville State. Well, guess what? He's back at West Virginia right now. So, and West Virginia is not having a great season right now. But my point is, if you go from a tier 2, tier 3 job to a tier 1, Michigan's a tier 1, Penn State's a tier 1, Florida's a tier 1, and you fail there, you're going to get opportunities back at a tier 2, tier 3. Rich Rodriguez got those opportunities at Arizona, and now he's back at West Virginia again. We're talking about similar type jobs to Mizzou. I would say Arizona, West Virginia, similar type jobs to Mizzou. That is where the narrative shouldn't just be like, oh, you stay at Mizzou, you can stay there forever. If I'm Eli Drinkwitz, don't you want the pressure also of the blue blood? And here's the other part I haven't mentioned. If you truly don't think you can win a national championship at Mizzou, which may be the case, then you got to take your shot at a blue blood. I think we all agree that Eli Drinkwitz could take Mizzou to the college football playoff in this 12-team format. Absolutely. If he doesn't think he has the resources, and I know they have good resources at Mizzou, I'm talking about top-tier resources to win a national championship, he should leave. If he's really a candidate for Penn State or Florida, he goes there, he either succeeds or he fails, but he gets another opportunity at a Mizzou type job. There you go. I repeated myself a couple times. but hopefully you got the point. And thank you, Jeff Castle, for tuning in. He says, good afternoon, Charlie. Good afternoon, Jeff. Okay. Sticking with college football, I did a short on the channel talking about Ohio State, Penn State. I did watch basically that whole game last Saturday. Really good game in the first half. 17-14 Buckeyes, I believe. And then Ohio State just stomped on Penn State. Third quarter, they scored 21 unanswered points. So what's the math there? 38-14 is the final. Ohio State is really good. Their schedule is pretty damn soft. Let's be real. They've only played one competitive fourth quarter. That was the first game of the season against Texas. You can make the argument that the game against Washington was competitive into the fourth quarter. Penn State was competitive for a half, but then Ohio State blew them out in the third quarter. And I just saw a mock draft that had 3 Buckeyes in the top 8 or 9. You had Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs on the defensive side of the ball. You had Carnell Tate, wide receiver, all like top 8, 9 picks. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith is only a sophomore. So Ohio State, super talented. I think they're deserving of being the best team, number 1 team in the country. But the schedule's pretty soft. We'll see what happens. I do think there's a lot, though, to Ryan Day shortening the games. You've seen that narrative out there. I think it's true. It's very smart. Think about it like this. In the 12-team college football playoff era, if you get to your conference championship game, that's 13 games. And then if you get to the national championship game, depending on if you have a bye, now Ohio State right now would have a bye, but you could play, what is that? 17 games. More likely 16 if you have a bye there. But Ryan Day is trying to shorten the games, shorten the seasons, not to build up on injuries, because this is no longer a 12, 13, 14 game season if you want to win a national championship. It was never 12, but I'm saying back in the day, it could have been about a 14, 15 game season to win a national championship. Now it's a 16 or 17 game season to win a national championship, depending on the buys, depending on if you get to your conference championship game. So there you go. I think Ohio State's really good. The defense is rolling. Like I said, you got Arvell Reese. You have a great player there on the back end with Caleb Downs as well. The offense is off the charts. You have both coordinators being replaced. Matt Patricia looks like a better coordinator than last year with Jim Knowles. Julian Sayin the other day, 316 something yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Both receivers went off for like 5 or 6 catches and 125-ish. Each had at least 1 touchdown, but you also have to be tested. If they play Indiana in the Big Ten championship game, that would be awesome. I'm excited for that if it happens. And then college football playoff, we shall see. Okay, moving on from college football to the World Series. I know it ended, 5 days or so ago, but man, what a World Series. I was totally locked into the World Series, especially as it moved on. And that Game 7, just heartbreak. I was rooting for the Blue Jays, but you just kept letting the Dodgers, as we say from Teddy KGB, hanging around. They kept letting the Dodgers hang around. You had, first of all, the play where they sub out Tommy Edman, and then Pajes goes and makes that unbelievable catch. And I love Tommy Edman, but Tommy Edman's pretty short. He wasn't making that catch. That was a World Series winning move by Dave Roberts to sub out Tommy Edman for Pajes. You had the play from Miguel Rojas making the play at home, where otherwise the Blue Jays win the World Series. I mean, they were so close so many times. When they didn't score in the inning I'm talking about, you kind of got the feeling the Dodgers were going to win it. And look, I don't dislike the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers actually have likable dudes on the team. Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Shohei Ohtani, Tommy Edman. But just the Dodgers have become the Yankees in terms of the spending, the evil empire. Again, I don't look at them the same way. I don't think they're evil. but they are the best team money can buy. They're deferring all this money. So I was rooting for the Blue Jays. But at the end of the day, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And the Blue Jays had so many opportunities, so many close games. Also the 18-inning game and the game before where you have the craziness going on with the ball being stuck in the outfield fence underneath. Just so close. You could make the argument the Blue Jays were essentially the better team in the World Series. Shohei Ohtani went off, obviously, especially early on in the World Series, but man, that's one of those World Series you're never going to forget. You're never going to forget the opportunities you had. Kind of reminds me of the 2011 World Series. If you're the Rangers, you can just never forget about the opportunities, how close you were to winning the World Series. Nelson Cruz, if he's not out there, if he's subbed out, whoever the outfielder is, better defensively, could probably catch David Freese's triple, and maybe the Cardinals are never the World Series champs in 2011. But man. And then the other thing about the World Series, it got me thinking, and I tweeted this, but it puts aging into perspective, because I was 11 years old watching Joe Carter hit the game-winning home run in 1993. I was a huge baseball fan growing up. So I remember all of the video, and you're seeing the replays of Bill Mazeroski hitting the game-winning home run in 1960. Well, in 1993, when Joe Carter happens, I'm watching Bill Mazeroski. That's 33 years ago. That seemed like ancient time. It was crazy for me to think that an 11-year-old right now in 2025 looks at Joe Carter, which was 32 years ago, in the same vein and time lapse that I looked at Bill Mazeroski, which back then was 33 years ago, right? 1993 to 1960, essentially the same time frame as 2025 to 1993. And it's just crazy to think that, because when I'm growing up, Bill Mazeroski is 30 or so years ago, but then 30 years before that is Babe Ruth and all that. And if you're a kid now, 30 years ago is Joe Carter. 30 years before that, which to me was Babe Ruth, is just Bill Mazeroski. And then the Babe Ruth days is even another 30 years before that. It's just crazy. It's kind of obvious, but it puts things in perspective. And we had the old grainy video of Bill Mazeroski. You watch Joe Carter. It's pretty good. It's pretty good in terms of video quality. And then 30 years from now, we'll probably be watching like freaking holograms, and we'll see what happens this year, and it'll look old, because God even only knows what the technology will be like 30 years from now in 2055. But anyway, that just put things in perspective. It was kind of crazy for me to think that an 11-year-old now, Joe Carter to them is what Bill Mazeroski was to me in 1960. Jeff Castle chimes in. I'm happy for Tommy. Yep, I was also rooting for the Blue Jays. Yeah, he was also rooting for the Blue Jays, but he likes the former Cardinal, Tommy Edmond. Thank you, Jeff. All right, for my St. Louis area folks, all right, please hook up my sponsors, Triad Bank. You see the logo up there in the right-hand corner. Best thing I ever did for my rental property business, taking all my commercial loans from a big national bank that didn't care about me to a local bank, Triad Bank in Frontenac. They also have the Creve Coeur location, but it's triadbanking.com. My voice is cracking here. I don't know why. Maybe I'm going back to my 11, 12-year-old years of Joe Carter, and I'm going through puberty again. But my guy Matthew Tobin hooks it up. Great customer service. I think I've had like 6 loans with them over the years. I think right now I have 3. We have a line of credit. We have a rental property we just bought that we got the loan with Triad Bank, and then I actually just paid one off. So right now we have 2. We have the line of credit off the house, and that's how I started my rental property business, was off that line of credit I got with Triad Bank. Triadbanking.com. Going to have a meeting with them next week. They're fantastic. And then St. Louis Equipment, St. Louis Lawn Care. St. Louis Lawn Care, they just stopped cutting for the season. We got the winter coming up here. They still do leaves. Get your leaves removed. They do all kinds of landscaping. I got some arborvitae, got a big juniper, got some boxwoods put in. But they also, my guy Tim Jankerson has St. Louis Equipment, which is stlmowerrepair.com. Buy a mower, get your mower repaired. Small engine stuff. They have all the best brands. I got a Husqvarna blower over there. I got a Crest battery-operated trimmer. They don't have Crest brand anymore, but they have the big brands, Wright and Skag, for the mowers. And they got some specials going on because I just emailed with them the last couple of days. So here we go. Winter items. Okay, they sell bulk and bagged salt and ice melt. They're open 24 hours during snowstorms. They have 4 locations, by the way. The bulk salt can be delivered to you. This is St. Louis equipment, stlmowerrepair.com. Bulk salt picked up at our 2 salt locations. That's in Afton and O'Fallon Mow. Again, 4 locations. They also have the brand new location in Jefferson County in DeSoto. But they have new plow and salter installations, and you have preseason plow service. They have a deal for anybody watching this show or me on social media. Mention you heard about it from Charlie Marlow. You get 25% off the preseason plow service. You got to plow, folks. You got to plow. St. Louis equipment, preseason plow service, 25% off. Mention you heard it from Charlie Marlow. There you go. St. Louis equipment, St. Louis Lawn Care, Triad Bank, love them all. We'll end the show there. We talked about college football. Eli Drinkwitz, should he stay? Should he go? If I'm him, I go. See what happens at a Penn State or a Florida. Fall back to another Mizzou-like school if it doesn't work out. Ohio State, very good, but untested. World Series, dang, Blue Jays, you had it. And I'm feeling old. That Joe Carter was when I was 11. And for kids now that are 11, Joe Carter was their Bill Mazeroski. Makes you feel old. And I'm only 43. All right, folks. Thank you so much. Comment, like, subscribe. Jeff Castle, thanks for watching live. Love you all. Peace out. End stream.